Welcome back to another episode of Two Average Husbands. I'm your host, Jake.
And I'm your host, Kyle. Welcome back, everybody. Jake, what are you not drinking this week?
Nice, delicious Monster.
I actually have one of those. Maybe I should just drink one of those with you.
Yeah, I drank Thursday. I drank yesterday. I got to drink tomorrow. Decided I had to take a little bit of the day off. We were going to record this last night, but my kickball game went a little long. Didn't get home till about 10:30. So we decided to push that till today. So you get to see me drink energy drinks, which I also just consider like to be my life water. So
Sounds about right.
But as I kind of just implied right there, I had a really long day yesterday. Played in a golf outing and played kickball in our cup in hand kickball league that Kyle's gotten to experience before.
I have indeed.
Our team this year is not as good as our team was when Kyle was there.
That's
but
right.
You know what? You live and you learn. I think I made Jess pay for the league instead of me, so free out of my pocket. But this week, I was in the drinking mood when I came up with this idea. Kyle, I sent it to you on Twitter. We are going to do a beer tier list. It's some of the most popular light beers that are out there. I will go ahead and share my screen here so we
Take it we're doing it together then?
Yes, we are doing this together. Because I feel like our opinion on light beers is not too different. There's a couple in there that I think might be a little interesting to have, but we will see very shortly here. So let me go ahead and share my screen.
That looks terrible.
All right, so let me just pull this over here. All right, we can see the tier list. So, Kyle, this is mostly, like I said, light beers. There are some non-light beers in here. There's also a never had category, which we will need to use because I already can tell a couple in here that I've never had before.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever had, do you see any off the rip that you've never had?
I don't know that I've ever had Blue Moon's Honey Wheat. I could be wrong.
I have. I like it. We'll get into that, though.
What is the orange Bud Light? Is that Bud Light Orange?
Yeah, Bud Light Orange.
Gross. No, I've never had that.
Have you ever had Extra Gold Lager?
No, never even seen that before in my life.
Me neither. Have you ever had Genesee?
That looks so familiar to me, but I feel like it's just a similar label to something else. But no, I don't think I have.
I haven't had it either. I've heard bad things about it only. The only other thing on here that I haven't had is, I think it's like Rainier, I think is the brand.
Oh, yeah, I don't think I've had that.
Yeah, I've never had that one. So,
yes, the rest of those I have had all of them.
we will start with the honey wheat, which Kyle just said he has never had. I like it. When I was starting out drinking, so right when I turned 21, I was a huge Blue Moon guy. As I've grown, I've kind of fallen out of favor with it, but I do like the honey wheat a lot. I would probably put it at the top of the C category. Give us a nice base level one to start out with. So I'm going to do that because Kyle has no opinion there.
I don't, and I'm posting on our Instagram. So
there we go. How do we feel about regular Blue Moon, Kyle?
So Blue Moon was probably my long-standing favorite for maybe 1 or 2 years. In my early 20s. I don't know, dude. So I've always really liked Blue Moon. I think if I went and had a Blue Moon today, I'd be really happy with it still. I just don't drink it anymore.
Yeah.
For no particular reason, mostly just because I drink Ultra all the time.
Yeah.
So I would still put Blue Moon probably in an A tier.
Yeah.
But that's just my particular opinion.
I would have to agree, and I think it also does have an unfair advantage of Blue Moon being like a nicer beer compared to a lot of this list. So I think like by default, it was going to end up a little bit higher up for me as well.
Yeah, it's a good beer.
I probably would have put it in B over A, but I got no complaints about putting it in A with the rest of this list. Bud Light Orange, you have mentioned that you've never had it. I definitely like it less than regular Bud Light. I think Bud Light Orange is too sweet for me. That one's
what does it taste like? Is it supposed to be like a Blue Moon?
Basically, it's, obviously you're dealing with a lager, or I guess a Pilsner. Is that what Bud is considered, or is it a lager?
I can't remember.
I'm gonna Google this now. Is Bud Light a Pilsner?
I feel like it's a.
I want to say it's a lager.
It's a great question.
Nope, it's a Pilsner. Okay.
Okay.
Unless if this website lied to me, YouTube comments let me know. But yeah, so you're dealing with a Pilsner as opposed to a wheat beer. So the orange to me, it just doesn't work as well as it does in like Blue Moon, or even when you're looking at some of them like what's it called? what are the other ones, like Shock Top or like any of the Shandies or anything like that. It just doesn't work as well for me. So, moving on to Bud Light. Bud Light is probably my second favorite right now, anyways, of like the traditional light beers. What would you say there, Kyle?
I think Bud Light is fucking disgusting. I think Budweiser was the first beer I ever had. I know that for a fact, but I think Bud Light was the one I drank the most when I was younger, and I got sick of it very quickly, and I don't think that I will ever intentionally pick up a Bud Light again unless it's either the only option or like a landslide cheapest option.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, I put Bud Light of light beers probably in the D category.
I would put it probably, like I said, I do like it. I would probably put it in the B category personally, but so I think we middle ground it on low C.
Yeah, I would take that as a compromise, but I think you're going to find, too, that when we start going through the rest of these, like, if we're going to truly distribute these across this scale, like, Bud Light is shittier than most of these beers.
Yes, but I also am going to put a lot of these beers higher than you probably think. But
Maybe so.
For me, Bud Heavy is probably, like, when you compare, like, regular Coors, regular Busch, like, you know, Miller High Life, you know, any of the non-light beers from the same companies, it's probably my favorite of like the heavy options of most of these companies.
I don't know that I agree with that. I do. Well, first of all, I haven't had a Bud Heavy in quite a long time. Honestly, I can't remember the last time I did. But I do think Budweiser is significantly better than Bud Light.
Oh, yeah.
So I'd say at least it has to go to the B category for me.
Yeah, B is where I would put it too.
Okay.
I've got no qualms about that. Next
Cool.
up is the old Busch Latte.
What is the one next to it? Is that like Busch Heavy?
Yeah, Busch Heavy.
Okay, I can't really see that label at all.
Yeah, so Busch Light, I would probably put it right next to Bud Light. They're basically the same beer to me.
Ugh,
It's never gonna be
completely.
it's never gonna be my first choice, but I'll drink either of them. I
think
probably
I
would
would
prefer a Busch Light to a Bud Light this very second if I'm thinking about
Yes.
it. The Busch Light's a little bit more refreshing, and I need a refreshment more than
As
I need
a
beer right now.
Midwesterner, you're failing yourself to not put this at least a whole category higher than Bud Light.
I don't
Like, I
think
would
am.
put this. I would personally put this above Budweiser.
But you also got to think, Busch Light is like currency in Iowa, so
Yeah,
maybe
it's
that's
so
why you
good.
think that way. Like we used to buy Busch Light and then bring it to our friends out there because it was so much cheaper in Illinois than it is in
yeah, it
Iowa
is.
for whatever reason.
It's just hilarious to me because I remember growing up and like people would, when we first started drinking, everyone was like, "Oh, Busch Light is just the piss water of Bud Light," and like people would just say stupid shit like that all the time. But Busch Light is literally so much better. It is leagues ahead.
As I'm looking at this list more, I'm moving Bud Light down to top D, and you're gonna be happy with that.
I am happy with that,
Yeah.
and then I would be happy putting Busch Light in a C category if I had to.
Busch Light was already in C. You mean D?
It wasn't for me.
Oh,
But yes, we can compromise there.
yeah.
I think my Iowa folks are gonna hate everything about that, and I don't disagree with them. I think Busch Light should be higher, but we have to have some sort of a middle ground there, so I'm okay
Yeah.
with that.
Busch Heavy. I don't mind it. It's fine.
I don't think I've had Busch Heavy more than once, so I don't have a particular opinion on Busch Heavy. I just like Busch Light, so I don't really care about Busch Heavy.
I had a family friend who drank only Busch Heavy, and so I drank a lot of it with them. But it's still, I mean, it's better than all the Bud Lights. I'd probably put it below Busch Light, honestly. I think the Busch Light's better than Busch Heavy.
Yeah, I would completely agree. So
Next is Coors Heavy.
this is where I primarily disagree with you as far as the light heavy beers. I know that doesn't make any sense, but all of these beers are still light beers in my opinion, even though they're like heavier versions.
Yeah.
But I do think Coors Banquet is better than Bud Heavy.
It's been so long since I've had a Coors Banquet that I can't really make an argument one way or another, so I'll give that to you.
If you would have been here during less COVID-y times, I would have taken you to Tough Luck Club in Tucson, where they have the special down there, so you can get a shot of corn whiskey that is literally all it says on the label,
Yeah, it's
and
like
a
mellow
Coors
corn.
Banquet for like $6 or whatever the fuck the special is.
That's still not the best special that I've ever seen. I don't actually know where the place is, but my buddy posted on his Snapchat story. Him and his family go a lot over the summer. I think it's by their lake house, but it's like a 8-ounce sirloin and a 6-pack of Busch Heavy, and it's like $8.
Huh.
I'm like, that's a
legit.
fucking steal and a half right there.
Yeah,
The steak alone's at $8. Like,
Yeah. The best deal that you can get downtown in Tucson is probably one of those, because since then, like, several other bars have picked up that idea. There's like 3 or 4 places that do it, and it's always Coors Banquets, which is hilarious. But I love Coors Heavy.
Next time we come out there, you're gonna have to.
Yeah, we'll go downtown next time you guys come through for sure.
Yeah, it'll be nice when it's less COVID-y. But next on the list is Coors Light for me. This may be my controversial opinion. Maybe it's because I drank a lot of it yesterday, but I like Coors Light a lot more than I remember liking it.
I like Coors Light too.
Would you put it above Busch Light?
Personally, no, but I'm sure that you would.
Right now, I probably would. And high C or low B?
It's harder for me because I don't agree with the placement of Busch Light. Because I would say if you had Busch Light as like a low C, I would easily put Coors Light as a low B. I would put Coors Light as a top C. But because we have Busch Light in the C category, that makes it harder for me. I
can understand that, and if I'm thinking about this from a cost perspective too, it's hard to beat a 30 rack of Busch Light for $12.99.
Yeah.
So I will move Busch up just purely out of a cost perspective.
Okay.
It's the only one in here, besides PBR and the Natter Days, that I can find in a 30 rack regularly. So just from a cost perspective, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt there.
All right. So then I would put Coors Light in a high C.
Yeah. Okay. That's what we've got here. So Corona Extra. What's your opinion on Coronas?
I really like Corona.
I really do too.
I don't know that I'm particular about the difference between like a Coors or a Corona Extra and a Corona Light. I don't think that there's that much of a difference.
Yeah, you could hand me any Corona, I'll drink it. But I think Corona Extra is the only one on this list. There's no Corona Light.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
We'll just do Corona as a whole. I would put Corona up in S tier, honestly. I've never had a time where I didn't enjoy the Corona that I drank.
I mean, I can't disagree with that statement, but I also don't think I could say anything different about like Blue Moon. Which makes me want to just put, I don't know, I have to look at this list again and just see if there's anything that I think could beat it in like an S tier fashion. And my general, just looking over this is probably no.
I've got a few. I don't have a ton in here that I would say I'd put into S tier, but Corona's one of them. Blue Moon for me, the reason I put Blue Moon below Corona is, like you're saying, even the Corona Heavy isn't that heavy. So like I can drink a lot of them. If I have like 2 Blue Moons, I feel so full, and that's it's like my big knock on it.
Yeah,
it's just heavier.
I'm fine with it. I don't see anything that I could say could definitively beat it on the remainder of this list, so I'm okay with that.
Alrighty, next up is Hams.
I really like Hams.
I do too. I probably haven't had one since I turned 21, but
I have. I think Hams is worse than Busch Light. I think it is debatably worse. Well, no, it's probably worse than Coors Light too. So I would probably put it somewhere in the low C category. I just really fucking don't like Bud Light. I think I would allow an argument to have Hams even below Bud Light, but I'll let you make that determination.
It's been so long that I don't think I can, so I'm going to default to your opinion here. If you want it below Bud Light, I'll put it below Bud Light. But you said you like Hams and you hate Bud Light.
I do hate Bud Light, but I know that I'm an odd man out in that sense. Like, I know a lot of people do like Bud Light. I just don't. So it's hard for me to put things below Bud Light. But Hams is probably a shittier beer than Bud Light. It probably is.
I wish I could put them like just on top of each other.
Yeah.
But it's definitely...
I would pick up a Hams before I pick up a Bud Light.
You know what I'm going to do here? I'm going to make an executive decision, and we're going to add a F tier. Because I needed one more thing to work with here. God, why is this so hard? Add a row above. Christ. This is embarrassing. F. We're going to make that pink. Alright. I'm moving Bud Light Orange to an F tier. Because it's trash.
Bud Light is trash.
Bud Light, I'm doing the Bud Light Orange. I don't think... I feel like if you drank a Bud Light right now, I don't think you'd hate it as much as you think you would. Like, if I just poured a Bud Light in a glass and handed it to you, I think you'd like it more than you realize.
I would drink it. I'm not going to deny that. I just don't like Bud Light. It's never... I would personally never go to the store and buy a case of Bud Light. Ever.
That's fair. All right, Keystone is next on the list.
I like Keystone too.
I do like Keystone. Do you ever do like it's Keystone, right? That used to do like the orange can, where they'd like it was like a prize if you got one of the orange cans.
Yes.
Yeah. So we
Yes.
drank a lot of that growing up,
I think.
just to try and win free beer.
Pretty sure
But
that's
it's also to me, like the Keystone Natty Light tier of beer, it's so interchangeable. I would put Keystone below Bud Light personally.
This list is pretty difficult because so many of these are so similar.
Yeah.
It's really just a preference
Yeah.
in the light beer
I
category.
feel it's going to be regional too a lot. I think
100%.
like you're saying the Midwest drinks a lot more Busch Light.
lattes. Yeah.
The
100%.
South drinks a lot more Bud Light / Miller Light. So,
Yeah. East Coast is very Yingling centric.
yep.
Keystone to me is better than Hams. I would put Keystone in a higher D category than Hams.
Works for me. Land Shark. Have you ever had it?
Have indifferent to it.
Yeah.
I would
I'd-
never buy Land Shark either, but
Yeah.
it's fun.
I was gonna say I'd put it in F tier. Just because I'm never gonna buy it. It's never gonna be
Sure.
like my preferred beer.
Okay, I'll buy
I
it.
would-
I'd
I
still
would-
put it above Bud Light. Probably,
Yeah. It's still going. It's going above Bud Light Orange. So I'm giving you half.
okay.
Next is Leinenkugels, specifically the Summer Shandy.
Isn't it? Yeah. Okay. Summer Shandy had its 1 year in the sun. It's like the one-hit wonder of Leinenkugel beers, and I think now I hate it.
See, I grew up and everybody around me was drinking it. So when I like turned 21 and started drinking, actually, I always really liked it. I still really find them refreshing to this day. But it's just one that I'm never buying.
I think my problem is when just like when you were younger and you used to drink those jug juices, you know what I'm talking about, where you pop the little tinfoil and drink
Hugs.
it, and then you try to drink that shit as an adult, and it just tastes like pure chemicals.
Well, yeah, because it's artificially sweetened. It's zero sugar.
That's how I feel about Summer Shandy now. Like I drank it when I
Really?
was younger, and I was like, "Oh, this is so good," and then I drink it now, and it's like, "Holy fuck, this is artificial and tastes terrible." So I'm not a big fan. I would put this in one of the lower tiers, but I know you don't agree with that, so I'll kind of default to your opinion.
I was gonna put it above Busch Light for sure.
Oh god,
Personally.
no way. I will concede higher C category at best.
You go top of C ahead
Yeah,
of
sure.
Coors Light.
Yeah, sure.
All right, Lone Star. F, not a fan. I don't like it.
I feel like I've only had a Lone Star one time.
Yeah.
And so I don't have a personal, very
All right.
in-depth opinion on this one.
It's going top of F tier because I'd
Okay.
still drink it over Bud Light Orange.
Okay.
All right, I know this is your beer of choice
Sure
when it
is.
comes to the light beer category. So let's hear what you have to say about Mick Ultra.
I
Sell
would
me
put
on it
this
being
at
higher.
the very bottom of S tier all day long. I think Mick Ultra is the most drinkable, universal, always will pick it up light beers that you can get. I think it tastes better than all of the other generic light beers, and they have some sort of false advertising built in to make you think that it's lighter than the rest of them, so that makes you feel a little better about yourself.
Yeah, isn't it
The
like
skinny
one
cans.
it's like 1 calorie less than Miller Lite.
It's something close to that. It's not very much less. They try to make it seem like it is significantly healthier for you than the rest of the light beers. But I truly believe, in terms of just in general taste, that it is better. That being said, too, it's not on this list, and I gotta even think of what it's called. I gotta look it up. Hold on. But one of the other Michelob beers, not Ultra, but they don't call it like Mick Heavy. What the fuck is their other one?
Is it like Michelob Premier? Or is
No, I think
that's
it was in
Bud
like a
Light?
gold can, if I remember correctly from back in the day. But I used to drink
I'm literally
Michelob.
Googling Michelob Gold can. Mick Ultra Pure Gold,
No, it's not. No.
Golden Light,
What the fuck else does Michelob make? Somebody chime in the comments. Help me out. I'm feeling dumb.
Michelob beers. I'm just googling.
There was one that I used to drink a long time ago that I loved before I ever had an Ultra. I feel like they're really only known for Ultra now, so I might not even find this. Maybe I'm just crazy and it was not Michelob. I don't fucking know. Anyway, I've always liked Michelob products, even before I started drinking Michelob Ultra, and now I just happen to really like Michelob Ultra.
I don't know if I can go S tier. Because there's one light beer that I would definitely put above it. That's
Okay.
still on this list.
Curious to hear what that is.
It's Miller Lite. I would drink Miller Lite
Jesus.
over Michelob
No.
Ultra any day of the week.
There's not a chance in shit that I would ever put Miller Lite in the S tier for beers. I like Miller Lite, but I would never call it an S tier. Because, and I'll sell it this way, I guess, but I think that the taste is so... It's unique among light beers, and you have to be in the mood for it. So it's not always, like, I'm not always in the mood for a Miller Lite, as opposed to some of these other ones where I could literally drink it every time I drank. I can't do that with Miller. I have to be in a specific mood for Miller.
I think I can give you that because there was a time in my life where the taste of a Miller Lite just was like repulsive. It was like a weird stretch of my life where I think I just drank too much of it, and then Bud Light. That's when like Bud Light took over for me. I will give you Michelob in the S tier for now.
Perfect.
I might have to talk you out of it, but Miller High Life is the quintessential. It's a beer to me. Like.
The funny thing about that is I would probably pick up a High Life before I'd pick up a Light right now.
Really?
For Miller. Right now.
I
think
had
would.
both of them on Thursday, and I definitely enjoyed the Miller Lite more than I did the High Life.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree probably universally across the board that High Life is probably a worse beer, but right now I think I would take High Life over Light, but that's just right now.
Would you take High Life over Busch Light?
No. But I don't agree with you on the Miller Lite stance, so it doesn't matter. Like
I'd be fine putting these two right next to each other at the bottom of B tier.
Miller and Miller High Life?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll buy that.
I've got no qualms about
High
doing
Life
that whatsoever.
slightly below Miller. Okay.
I'll keep High Life in front right now. Natty Ice.
Natty Ice is dog shit.
Yeah.
Natty Ice is literally a terrible.
It's bottom of the barrel there. Natty Light though.
Natty Light. And the interesting thing about Natty Light is, did we take you to Culinary Dropout while you were here? No, because you said you guys have one back home. Anyway, so Culinary Dropout does the paper bag special. And in the paper bag special, you get a random light beer, a random canned light beer for $2. So I do it all the time. Every time I go there, I get... I usually have one drink that I think is actually like good and I'll pay the money for, and then I'll get fucking paper bag specials for the rest of the time that I'm there. And I would say 9 times out of 10, it has been a Natty Light. And I have enjoyed it every time. So
I was gonna say, I feel like every time I see like Instagram or Snapchat stories while y'all are there, it's always you drinking a Natty Light out of a.
I have a lot of Natty Light there. Out of a little, and it's funny too because it's like these mini paper bags. It's great. I like it. I would put Natty Light above Keystone at the top of D category, as we currently have this sitting.
I would agree. Right now I would definitely probably drink a Natty Light over a Bud Light.
100%.
This is my controversial opinion that I know you're going to hate, but Natterdays is an S tier beer.
Yes, I absolutely hate that. We are literally on polar opposite ends of the spectrum here, mostly for the same justification that I had with Summer Shandy. I think when you start adding like a ton of sugar and like sweetness to a beer, it ruins it completely. I think like citrus taste in a beer is okay, which is why I do like Blue Moon, and I think Summer Shandy's fine. I don't drink it anymore, but I think it's fine. But I think Natty Light, or the Natter Day based off of Natty Light, is just absolutely disgusting.
I don't think I can put this any lower than A tier. I can drink Natty Light, Natterdays specifically, until the day I die. If that was the only alcoholic drink that I could have for the rest of my days, I would be so fine with that.
That sounds like I would have gut rot every time I drank for the rest of my life, and that sounds miserable.
It's like this. It's the same amount of carbs as any of the other light beers.
I don't care about carbs. It's just fucking sweet. It's a sweet light beer, which is gross.
It's all light beers are sweet.
It's like lemonade beer.
Yeah,
It's
strawberry
disgusting.
lemonade beer. It is delicious.
Oh my god! I will let you throw it there, and I will put a stamp of known protest in the category of A for Natterdays, and just everybody know that. You can't put it at the top. Fuck you! I will not let you put it at the top.
Damn it.
No way.
That's fine. Whatever. Old Milwaukee. Trash.
Pretty trash. I think it's better trash than Natty Ice.
I would drink it still over everything else that's in. Like, I would still put it at the top of trash tier, but it's still trash. PBR.
I hate that PBR became like the brand of the hipster.
Right?
Because the first beer that my oldest brother ever bought me while I was still underage was PBR. And because of that, I got used to drinking PBRs, and I didn't even know what they were until he bought it for me. All I really knew at the time was like your standard Bud Light, Coors Light, Bud Heavy kind of concept. But then I got PBR for the first time, and I have always liked PBR.
I love PBR.
Always.
I was the guy, like, going to parties. Like, everybody would bring, like, Bud Light, Miller Light. I was the guy who would show up with a 30 rack of PBR, and I'd be the only one drinking it, and I'd be like, fine by me.
See, that was the interesting thing about when in Iowa, where I grew up, they had, like, if you brought Miller Lite, nobody would touch it. If you brought PBR, probably nobody would touch it early on. Really, but if you brought anything else, like Coors Light, Busch Light, Bud Light, Bud Heavy, Coors Banquet, it doesn't matter. Like, it would disappear. So I would always drink PBR and Miller when I was younger.
I love PBR. I would put PBR probably in A tier.
Yeah, I'd let it take the bottom of the A as it currently sits.
Especially from a cost perspective, 30 rack, $13.99.
Yeah, for sure.
Can't beat it for a light beer, for like a full bodied beer. Kind of tastes like weed a little bit, but you just accept that as part of it. Next is Rolling Rock. I haven't had it probably since I was underage, and I didn't like it then, and I probably don't like it now.
I disagree a little bit. I think in the general, looking at this list, I would have a Rolling Rock before everything through F and D tier, which makes me want to put this at the bottom of C or at the top of D. I don't really care.
I'll do top of D.
Because I think Rolling Rock is better than definitely everything in F, 100%. I would have to sip on a Keystone, Hams, Natty, and Rolling Rock side by side to make a final determination, but I think Rolling Rock is better than at least half of the beers in D tier.
That is something that we have talked about potentially doing at some point, was doing like a light beer ranking live. So that's something I think we're gonna have to not buy all of these, because I'm not spending that much money, but I feel like we can do like quite a few of these and at least do a taste test and just see if that day if our rankings stay the same.
I gotta see if I can find a place that does like mixed light cans. Like, you can make sixers of light cans.
Well, I know we can at like Jewel. So if you have like Albertsons or something near you,
I think they might do it at Fry's, but they're very selective with the number of beers that are in their like singles area.
Yeah.
It's like one little shelf. So I don't know that you'd be able to find enough of the light beers.
Well,
that being said, though, what we should do is just like power hour this. So like, we rank them as we go, but we power hour like individual shots of each, so you're not drinking like an entire one of any of these.
I wouldn't be drinking a full beer to do the rankings. There'd be sips. I'd finish the day. We'd have to play video games afterwards because I'd have like 12 open beers in front of me.
Exactly. But I am 100% down to do that.
Let's go.
Sounds like a great idea.
It sounds like a horrible idea, but also a great idea. And now, since I've lost weight, I don't know if it was just me being heavier that had a thing to do with like my kidney stones, but it used to be like I could drink beer and I could like feel my kidneys like struggling. Like, I could feel that a stone was coming on. And recently, like, I've been able to do the podcast and drink. I've been able to like have a lot more, and I think just because my body's healthier overall, I just don't get kidney stones as much. So
that's good.
I'm back to drinking beer again. Fuck it. Fuck my kidneys.
Fuck my kidneys.
Next thing on the list is Sam Adams. It looks like it's the Boston Lager, which...
So I think of the beers on this list, Sam Adams and Shinerbach are the two that shouldn't be here.
Yeah, I would agree. They don't fit they don't fit the...
Yeah, I would most definitely take both of those beers into like the amber category and out of the light.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that I think it's accurate to rank them with the same list, but because they're here, I will. And I think Sam Adams would probably go at the bottom of A, maybe top of B, given the ones that we have on the list.
This is, again, probably controversial. I'd probably drink a Coors Banquet and a Budweiser over a Boston Lager.
So would I.
Personally, I like other Sam Adams beers
I would drink a
better
Busch Light
than the
before a
Boston
Sam
Lager.
Adams Boston Lager.
So you want to put that behind
I would
the
put
Busch
this at the
Light?
bottom of B if you're comfortable with that.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Maybe above High Life. I'd probably drink it before High Life.
I'll put it between High Life and Miller Lite, because I personally wouldn't drink it before either of those, but I know you would.
I would just High Life.
How about Shinerbach? I love Shinerbach.
I'm kind of
This is like a staple. This is like, my dad has the same like kidney problems that I have, so he would never drink beer, but for whatever reason he could drink Shinerbach and never get kidney stones. So this was like always in my house. So I learned to really like Shinerbach. I like grew up on it. I love it.
I will let you do what you want with it, other than S tier, because I think that it's good.
I think top of B tier.
Okay, I'll buy that. I don't pick it up and go buy it But if somebody has it like, somewhere out, I would have one and I would enjoy it. It's not one of my favorites.
Yeah. All right, last up, Younglings, Yingling, however you say
Yingling, yeah.
Yingling.
I hate the hype on Yingling. I hate it. I hang out with a lot of people that grew up around Yingling and they think it's the hottest shit on the planet. And I completely disagree. I do think that it is more drinkable than other light beers, but because of the fact that it's so hyped up around the people that I know, it makes me hate it even more. So I'm a little bit biased on the Yingling, but I do think that it is a good light beer. It's slightly different tasting than the rest of the light beers, so I think that adds some uniqueness to it that makes it okay. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's like the oldest brewery, or like one of the oldest breweries in America. Definitely like the oldest on the East Coast or some shit like that. Like it's got some history. It's kind of cool, but I don't know. I don't know how much Yingling you've drank, but it doesn't blow my mind.
Growing up, I didn't drink a lot of it just because you couldn't find it where we were. So
Same.
it was.
I couldn't either. I didn't have the first Yingling until I moved to Florida.
Yeah, I didn't have. I had one. It's probably a couple of years ago. It finally started to make more of a appearance in our area. I would say it's fine. I'd put it above like Rolling Rock and Natty Light, but that's like I'd go like top of D tier. I don't think I'd like it enough to put it in C tier.
So this is where like I do think I would have to escape my bias a little bit because I do think that it's better than some of the beers in the C tier as well. Like I would buy a case of Yingling before I would buy a case of Busch Heavy.
I'd probably buy a case of Busch Heavy and Coors Light.
I think if you side by side, if we could get you, do you have Yingling that you can actually buy there?
Yeah, I can buy it.
I think when we do the taste test, you should definitely get Yingling. I don't know that I can actually. I have to see if I can, because if I can, I think you would see in a like side by side test that you like Yingling more than some of these other ones.
Ryan commented back on Twitter and said that our rankings are blasphemy.
Yeah, I saw that. I think this is what I'm gonna do.
I'll default to you on Yinglings.
I'm gonna bump High Life down to the top of C because I think B is getting just too overgeneralized here. So I think we have to kick something out. I would knock High Life down. I would probably knock Boston Lager down 1, 2. And then I would put Yingling at the bottom of B.
Okay.
That's what I would do.
I will default this. So I will save this one and post it. And I'll go back through again later and I'll do my personal rankings. And then we can have everybody vote on it. And then that way we have true reference points for each of us when we go back and do the live episode of the actual tastings.
Yeah, I will. I can go around and rearrange this too, and I'll send it to you when I've got mine.
Awesome. All right. Well,
this is normally where we break up the awkward silence in between topics by giving ratings on beers, but since neither of us are drinking, I guess Jake can rate his Monster.
9.8.
9.8.
Top tier.
Says.
There's maybe 2 energy drinks that I think taste better than the white Monster. So, 9.8.
All right, man. Let's see. I have my first topic ready as well, and I can transition straight over to that. And I want to do 2 things with this one topic because I have football fever. I am going to talk about football. Big shocker. I want to know from the NFC and the AFC, who do you think is going to be a Super Bowl contender? Just one team per division. And then I want to know individually, who do you think is going to win each of their specific divisions?
All right, so let me pull up this here.
I say division universally, and I feel like that's probably wrong. Sorry, conference.
Conference, and then...
Yeah.
Yeah. So, from the AFC, so, like, who I think is going to be the best team in the AFC?
Of the entire AFC, who do you think goes to the Super Bowl?
I mean, the easy answer here is Kansas City. You know, they've probably got the most complete roster in football right now. But I'm going to make a little bit of a... I don't want to call it an out there pick, but I'm going to say the Titans. I really like what they did this offseason. I like the way they've kind of reshaped the team. I like them giving Tannehill, you know, one of the more underrated quarterbacks in football, giving him another real passing threat, obviously in Julio. You know, I think that offense is going to be a lot more dynamic this year. It's not going to have to run through Henry as much. And their defense is fine. If their defense plays up to what I think their ceiling is, I think they're the real contender in the division just because of how good I think that offense can be without having to, you know, if the Chiefs lose Tyreek or if the Chiefs lose Kelsey, they're in trouble. Like, Mecole Hardman has not shown that he's a great wide receiver to this point. Demarcus Robinson has not shown that he's a great wide receiver to this point. You know, who's the backup? Noah Gray, a undrafted or almost undrafted tight end. Like, if Kelsey goes down, like, you're gonna be in struggle city there. I like Clyde Edwards-Helaire a lot more than most people do, but past him, like, it seems like a very top-heavy team with Kansas City, whereas I think I like the depth of Tennessee a little bit more.
I think I don't disagree with you. I do think that I've seen a lot of really good news coming out of the offseason for Mecole Hardman, and I know that that's not exactly the first time we've heard good news about Mecole Hardman.
Yeah, it's just...
especially after what we saw with him in the Super Bowl. So I think there's some disappointment there, but it sounds like Kansas City is confident in Mecole Hardman moving into the next year. So I don't know that I don't disagree with most of the things that you said other than that specific target. I think is going to be hopefully better for Kansas City this year.
But it's just like, I just don't see what's going to make, like, yeah, he's going to be occupying Sammy Watkins' role. Like, okay, he's going to have 2 big games all year, and then he's going to disappoint the rest of it. Like,
yeah,
the offense doesn't run through a wide receiver. Like, you don't need a wide receiver 2 in that offense. If Tyreek's not open, then Kelsey's open. If Kelsey's not open, you can just dump it off to CEH and get a 7-yard gain, or Mahomes will scramble for
sure.
it.
I think I think you're right. You don't need it, but I think if Hardman can step up this year, I think that's going to be very helpful for them in order to just have that one additional option that can get open on the words are hard, but anyway, they're gonna have one more option to help relieve some of that pressure from Kelsey and Hill, and so I think I'm not trying to argue that I think the easy answer here is the Chiefs.
Yeah.
So I don't want to spend too much time trying to argue with you about the individual players on that team, because I do agree with you that that's
I
an
mean,
easy answer.
they're the clear, like, they're the team to beat in the AFC. There's no doubt about that, but I think Tennessee, that's why I picked them, is they're the one team that I really can see beating it. Like, Buffalo, if Josh Allen and Diggs are working well together, that offense it's hard to stop, but their running backs are limited. I don't think Zach Moss is good. Singletary's fine, but he's nothing special. The tight ends, Dawson Knox isn't, a world beater. I don't even know who else is on that roster at this point that plays tight end. Like, you're limited to a couple guys, again, super top heavy. I don't think the defense plays up to the level that it did last year again. So I just see them, I see them with a lot of holes. Whereas I feel like Tennessee really improved their team this offseason, and they're gonna show that this year.
Because you wanted to be a little different, I think that I want to give. Well, this is different than what you did, I guess, because I think, I agree that the Chiefs are the easy answer. And I think that the Chiefs probably will do very well, and I think the Chiefs are probably the best contender for the Super Bowl out of the conference. With that being said, I think the sleeper in the conference is the Los Angeles Chargers. Because
I agree. Yeah, if you're talking like a sleeper team, it's definitely them.
I think they have a ton of talent on that team, and with all of the improvements they made to the defense in the draft this year and in the offseason, I think the Chargers are going to be a very, very good team and potentially a contender in the struggle for them is that the fact that Kansas City is in the same division, so they're going to be competing head-to-head with a very, very, very good team in order to try to win out. But I think that they are definitely a sleeper contender within the AFC.
Well, and they were really hurt last year too. Like, you look at their injury report, like, you have some pretty decent names who missed some time. Like, Brian Bulaga missed some games. You have Chris Harris Jr. who missed some games. Melvin Ingram. You have Derwin James missed time again. Drew Tranquill, Mike Pouncey. Like, you had a lot of guys who were hurt on that team. And like you're saying, Eckler missed a lot of time too.
Yep.
So with Eckler fully back healthy, year 2 of Herbert, you've got, supposedly another Mike Williams breakout is supposedly going to be
That's the same thing as, not the same, but similar to the same issue with Hardman from the Chiefs, right? Like, it's always the hype behind him going into the season.
Yeah, and
it's
they
just
never
live up to the hype. So,
like, I don't care how good Mike Williams looks right now. He's not a better route runner than Keenan Allen. He's not going to get open more than Keenan Allen does. So Keenan Allen's going to keep being the wide receiver 1 in that offense. Like,
yeah.
I'm so, like, I don't
Justin
care how good these guys
Herbert
look.
Has the ability to feed 2 receivers, I think.
Yeah, but
easily,
also Eckler is one of those receivers he's going to feed.
Yeah, true.
Eckler's ceiling is what Kamara. Like,
The
if
sad
Eckler
thing is
stays
he
healthy,
spent
he
so
can be
much
smart.
time injured last year that it's hard to give a good analysis of what Eckler's going to look like with Herbert, but we'll see.
I mean, even I guess you can say that, but also I think his most targeted game of his career, I think he had like 17 targets in one game last year.
Yeah.
I think Herbert is just very good at reading a defense and knowing when he has to dump the ball off. Like, he's not going to force it.
He's good.
Yeah, he had one game with 16 targets and one game with 11 targets. You know, down the stretch, his targets went down a little bit, but that's just how the offense like needed to play in those few games. Like, I am super high on Eckler. You know that. Most people know that who
Yes.
knows anything about my fantasy football opinions. I just think, you know, he's done what he's done in this offense for 3 years now. You know, getting targets, getting, you know, a lion's share of the work. He's never going to be a 250 rusher, but the man's going to pull 60 to 100 targets, and that puts you in running back one territory pretty much all the time. It's, you know, I saw a stat, it's like 66.6% of the time. So, like, literally 2/3 of the time, if a running back gets 60 targets, he's likely to finish within the top 12 running backs in the game.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense, and it's specifically for fantasy, that's fantastic. So
Yeah. But yeah, I would agree that they're probably, you know, they're the sleeper in the AFC there.
I think that you are correct, too, that Tennessee is probably going to be one of the most competitive.
Yeah.
So I think you're looking at a Kansas City, Tennessee coming out of the AFC. Or
Well, I mean, you just look at
sleeper way to the victory.
You just look at Tennessee on offense. You got to stop Derrick Henry. If you can stop Derrick Henry, now you got to stop Ryan Tannehill, AJ Brown, and Julio Jones.
Yep.
Like, what other team can say that they have that level of running back and two wide receivers who are arguably within the top 10 in the sport right now?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see because Brown's coming back from some surgery, and it sounds like he still hasn't fully recovered, correct?
He played last season on like 2 torn ACLs, supposedly. I'm not worried about him.
Yeah, I think he's going to be fine. I'm just curious now because I've seen some of the off-season reports showing that he still isn't like really fully participating, and he's still kind of recovering some.
He
think there should be a
arguably
long-term
wasn't
impact.
100% last year either. I mean, he basically sat every Friday practice, if I'm not mistaken. He was like questionable going into every single week, and just he played through it. Like, he's a freak, and I think that gives him an advantage there. Where he's the type of guy who doesn't need to be fully healthy.
There's no denying that Tennessee went out and got Julio with the intention of this being their Super Bowl year.
Oh yeah, they're full sending it for the Super Bowl.
From a pure age standpoint, you're looking at probably not that many years left for Derrick Henry or for Julio, and so you have to maximize that talent for what you can this year and try to get yourself a Super Bowl.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, you see what they did too. Like, they've added at the cornerback position. They've added a lot of, you know, cornerbacks. They've added a lot of linebackers. You know, they've done a lot to really shore up that defense a little bit and just make it run a little bit better. I just feel like they're comfortable in what they're doing. Like, their team feels like it's in a much better spot right now than it has been at previous points. So I like what they're doing a lot, and they're definitely, you know, a team that I'm pulling for from the AFC. If we look at the NFC, I think the team that is going to surprise the most people is the Washington football team. The additions that they made at the wide receiver position are legit. You know, Terry McLaurin doesn't have to do everything for that offense now. You get a second year of Antonio Gibson where if you believe coach speak at all, they're giving him the reins to the running back position there. J.D. McKissick is not good at football, and he's not going to command 100 targets again. He's just not going to do it. Their offensive line is one of the best in the league. Their defensive line is one of the best in the league. Their defense as a whole is one of the more underrated teams, you know, underrated defensive teams in football. I think they had the second or third least points given up last year, if I'm not mistaken.
You're right.
So that team didn't get any worse defensively and only improved offensively in a weak division that, you know, the Cowboys' defense still hasn't improved. The Giants, who knows? The defense on the Cowboys hasn't improved to the point that they're not going to still be. Dak's going to throw for 5,000 plus yards this year because they're still going to be down in every game. They still have a lot of holes and a lot of weaknesses.
They do, but to say that they have not improved is a gross understatement because basically the addition of anybody in the draft would have been a fucking improvement.
If you improve from the worst to still the worst, but just not as bad, that's not an improvement to me. Like,
they're not going to be the worst. I think you are correct in saying that they are going to play games from behind, but I don't think that matters. I think Dallas is going to come out and ball the fuck out if Dak can stay healthy. So
We'll see. But I think they're, of all the teams, in the NFC, you look at the NFC North, a lot of questions here, pretty much all around. We saw a really good offensive season out of the Vikings, but again, terrible defense, really just did them no favors. For the Bears, does Fields start? How long does Dalton start? Do guys like Cole Kmet and Darnell Mooney take second-year jumps? Can Jalen Johnson handle being the cornerback one? Green Bay, is Aaron Rodgers still the Green Bay quarterback? We don't really know at this point.
Nobody still knows, which is scary for them.
I still think he plays. I don't see a world where he doesn't play, but also it's Aaron Rodgers. He could, quit the game right now and he'll still go down as one of the greatest quarterbacks to play the game. You look at the NFC South, no Drew Brees for the Saints. Nobody knows who their quarterback is. Is it Taysom? Is it Jameis? Is it, does their defense stay healthy? Can Kamara keep staying healthy? Who's their wide receiver two past Michael Thomas? Ton of questions.
I think it's probably
there.
Undeniable that from the South, Tampa Bay is still going to come back and impress.
Oh,
they didn't lose anybody in the offseason. They still have fucking Tom Brady.
As long as Brady can still have a heartbeat, they're going to be fine.
Tampa's going to come back and do well.
Carolina, I think, is going to surprise a lot of people. I think Carolina's team is a lot better than they're going to.
I love Sam Darnold being on the Panthers now. I
do too.
That.
I do think Darnold probably isn't as good as a lot of people are projecting his ceiling to be, but I think he's better than Teddy Bridgewater, and I think he's better than anything that we saw out of him with the Jets. And if you think about it, he's still only 23. If you think about it, he just played 3 years of the hardest college football of his life. He's barely older than Mac Jones.
I think a contender out of the conference this year is going to be the Cardinals, though. I think the Cardinals are going to have another excellent season, and I think they're going to really step up. It's going to be DeAndre Hopkins' story with Kyler Murray on his feet, and it's going to be pretty incredible to watch them again. I've loved them building this roster, and especially now that I live out here, I'm going to try to make it to a couple games if I can, because it's going to be incredible watching those guys play this year.
Yeah, I think the Cardinals can do a lot. I don't think the Rams I don't want to say the Rams didn't improve, because clearly Matt Stafford is an upgrade over Jared Goff.
I actually think it's going to be a lot of fun watching them play this year as well, purely from that position change.
Oh, yeah.
Just getting Stafford out of the Rams instead is going to be a fun to watch.
Goff is we just talked about with the beer list. There was a lot of them that we were like, yep, it's a beer. Jared Goff, you're like, yeah, he throws the ball. He's a quarterback. There's just nothing exciting about him, whereas Matt Stafford's, withered away in Detroit for his entire career.
I know you don't believe in Cam Akers either, but I think Cam Akers being with Stafford is going to be an upgrade for Cam as well, and I think he's going to improve this season as well. So it'll be fun to watch.
It's not that I don't believe in Akers. I just don't put him on the pedestal that a lot of people do.
That's fair.
People are treating him like he's Derrick Henry 2.0 for some reason, and to me, he's just he's a running back. He's good enough to get the holes when they're there, but he's a decent enough pass catcher, as we saw. We've seen from him when he has gotten the opportunity, and from what we saw with him in college. I just don't feel like he's a guy that the offense is really going to run through. It's always been a pass-heavy offense. Even when Gurley was there, Gurley commanded 70, 80, 90 targets. I just don't see him putting up the numbers to match his draft position, and I don't think he's as safe as a lot of people are acting like he is with a workhorse role.
I don't disagree with you on anything. I think he's overhyped, and I think he's gonna, for those that have the expectations that you're talking about, they're going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
I just happen to be, I think from a fantasy perspective, I think Cam Akers is probably one of the most solid RB2s you can have going into this year.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you get outside of the RB1s, the defined RB1s,
oh yeah, it's a cluster.
I think Cam Akers really stands out. So I don't know. I'm a believer in Cam this season. I am not putting him on the same pedestal that you're describing.
Yeah, a lot of people are, and I get why they do it. He's clearly a super talented back. I just don't see him being a game-changing player like some of the other running backs can be.
That's fair.
And then Seattle is, who knows? If Russ and DK and Tyler Lockett are cooking, that offense is going to do whatever it wants. If Carson stays healthy, they're going to be completely fine on the offensive side of the ball. Their defense, even when they lose players, seems to always stay solid.
Dude, that's the craziest thing about the Seattle Seahawks is I think they have just an incredible amount of talent on that team, and it doesn't turn into anything.
Yeah, they always seem to disappoint recently.
Yeah, it's terrible for them because I think there's a lot of people that are deserving of a ring on that team, and it's especially the receiver core and the quarterback that they have, like they've been putting up just an immense amount of talent and like fantastic numbers for like what 3-4 years now, and it's just it never comes to fruition for them. And it's sad.
Yeah, like Tyler Lockett gets better every year. DK is only going to keep getting better. Chris Carson's
DK's
been
insane.
Chris Carson
Carson's
is what
fine.
you were. Chris Carson to me is what you're just like describing in Cam Akers. Like he's the safest running. Like he's going to play 14 games.
Yeah.
He's not going to play a full season, but in those 14 games, he's got the potential to show out. He's good enough.
That's kind of like my thing, right? And I think this is a good comparison. I think Cam Akers though is the new and improved Chris Carson, because I think Chris Carson is getting too old, right? Like he's aging out of the role, and he's probably not going to be around for too much longer. Maybe a couple more seasons where he's really the starter. And so I think Cam Akers is going to kind of fill that role where you get a solid RB2 that maybe after this year and the hype kind of dies away from Cam Akers, it's someone that you can steal in like the later rounds of a fantasy draft, but they're still going to be a solid RB2. Yeah. So I don't know. I think that's a good comparison that you're making. So yeah.
But yeah, obviously Russ has a ring, so good for him. But there's a lot of people on that team who are definitely deserving. Like we've said, they're super talented. They just for whatever reason keep disappointing.
I mean, just from a pure record standpoint too, like they put up a better record last year than Tampa did. They put up a better record than almost everybody except for than Green Bay, and then they tied with the Saints. And so I don't know. So. Green Bay it's the same kind of story for Green Bay though too. Like they've had an incredible amount of talent with some great stretches, and they just it's not coming.
Rodgers can't carry everybody. Like
that's true.
That's one thing
Devontae
too.
Adams,
like I don't blame Rodgers for being as mad as he is. Like that franchise has just blatantly disrespected him the entire time he's been the quarterback there. Yeah. They just refuse to support him, and like he makes things work, and they're like, "No, we supported you. We got you. Insert wide receiver here. Like, here you go. Here's Randall Cobb.
We got you. Insert random wide receiver from like the 4th round of the draft or some fucking shitty offseason pickup. Yeah.
Like, oh hey, you want a wide receiver? Cool. We got you, Devin Funches. Like."
Yeah, dude, it's sad for him specifically. And I think the interesting thing is, there's been like the stupid rumors of him going to the Broncos this offseason. And I think that would be an incredible place for him to go to watch him play for the next couple years,
If Aaron Rodgers goes to Denver, Denver's winning the Super Bowl. I will say that with confidence right now. If that trade happens, they will win the Super Bowl.
I don't know that I agree specifically with that statement. I do think that it makes Denver a contender for sure.
They've got one of the best one of the best defensive rosters in football. They've got one of the best route runners in football in Jerry Jeudy. They've got a wide receiver coming back from injury who was showing a lot of promise in Cortland Sutton. They've got one of the most athletic tight ends in football who's shown a lot of success so far in Noah Fant. Their running backs, they've got Javonte Williams coming up there. There's so much talent on that roster that if the quarterback play was better, they're going to win the Super Bowl.
I still don't know that I would say definitively like win, but I 100% agree with you that the team immediately takes a massive leap. Yeah. Rank them 1, 2, 3, the wide receivers on Denver right now.
In terms of how I think that they will produce, or in terms of their talent?
Production. Let's go production this year with Drew Lock at the helm.
And when you say 3, you mean Noah Fant, or do you mean like their wide receiver 3?
Wide receiver 3.
I'm going to go Jeudy, Sutton, and then I think Tim Patrick probably outscores Hamler this year too. So I'd probably put Tim Patrick at 3. If not, if Hamler gets the slot role and like plays it consistently, I'd probably put him above Patrick, but I don't think he'll get it and hold it. Jeudy is too talented of a receiver to put up the numbers he did last year. Like his numbers last year, if you look at it, for the level of quarterback play that he had, his numbers were fucking impressive.
People were disappointed in his drops.
Probably.
Like people are afraid of his hands right now. And
I could do an entire episode on drops. You know what it means when you drop the ball? It means that you got a lot of targets because you were open a lot.
So that's my point, though. That's where I was going with that same conversation. Is I think people are afraid of Jeudy from a drop standpoint, but they're not. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. But I think you're not taking into account that their quarterback is absolutely terrible.
Yeah, like
Drew Lock is terrible, and the ones where he's actually throwing good passes to Jerry Jeudy are the ones that he's catching. There are some, I'm sure, that are like easily caught passes that were dropped, but that goes for a lot of people. So I'm not scared of Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah.
No matter who's at the helm, I think Judy's going to be a talent. And I think, honestly, like, I would try to pick him up if Drew Lock is going to be the starter, because I think people are going to be less enticed by the Jerry Jeudy play in fantasy. But
I'd rather have, for fantasy production, I would rather have Teddy Bridgewater at the helm than Drew Lock.
agreed, completely.
At least for the wide receivers.
Yeah,
Drew Lock
agree.
would probably be a better fantasy player, but I think just from helping the wide receivers out. When I look at Jeudy, like, people talk about the drops and people talk about his catch rate not being great. His catchable target rate is basically in line with his catch rate and his true catch rate. Like, they're within a couple spots of each other ranking wise. Like, he did not get passes that were thrown to him that were catchable, and when he did, he pretty much caught them. Like,
Yeah.
yes,
All right,
he had some drops, but I don't think his drop rate was like top 20 in the league, so it's really not even that bad.
I'm going to wrap this up just because we got to get to some of the other topics. And I want to do that by getting a definitive, this is who you think's going to the Super Bowl from each conference.
So from each conference, if we do I'll do them in order that ESPN does them. So I think the Bills probably win the AFC East again. I think the Ravens win the North, but Cleveland puts up a really good fight. I think the Titans win the South, but I think the Colts are going to be one of the wild card teams as well. Kansas City is going to win the West. I have no doubts about that. When we get to the NFC, obviously I think Washington's going to win the East, but I do think the Cowboys probably put up a fight and probably clinch one of the wild card spots. I would say the Bears win the North if Rodgers doesn't play and Fields does. If Rodgers plays and Fields plays, I still think Green Bay edges it out, but I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think. And if we actually let Andy Dalton start for a whole season, then I hope we get the wild card. In the South, I think Tampa takes it, and in the West, I think this is probably going to be the more controversial opinion from most people, but I think the Cardinals win the division this year.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Cardinals in year 3 of this offense, year 3 of Kyler, letting him really, run wild, and as long as he stays healthy, I think they're going to win it. They're going to win that conference.
Yep. I'll burn through mine really
Division.
quick, and then I'll give my Super Bowl picks. NFC, we'll start with just in reverse from what you just did. So NFC West, I agree with the Cardinals. I agree with Tampa in the South. I am going to go Dallas in the East because I'm a fanboy. And then this is my probably controversial one here. I think no matter what happens in this, I think Minnesota is going to take the North. I am impressed by their team.
If their defense stays healthy and improves, they've got a chance, I think. But
in the AFC, I'm going to go Tennessee as well. I don't know. I'm just not as much of a believer in the Colts as some people. I think it'll be interesting to watch them with Wentz this year, but
I just don't see any way they do worse than they did this year. Like, that's
okay. But I also would say the same with Tennessee picking up Julio, so I'm going Tennessee.
100%. Oh yeah.
Bills as well. I'm going to say Cleveland in the North. Actually, I think this is the big. I'll say that because I think this is the year that Baltimore is going to try to see if Lamar can throw the ball and not just run it, because they want to see if he's going to be their guy going forward, and if he's always going to run, he's never going to be able to withstand just physically and be their guy for the long term. So I think they're going to let him throw a little more this year, and I think because of that, Cleveland's going to take the division.
The one thing that I think makes that less of an issue is find a time where Lamar took a big hit. Like, he is so inept at just avoiding big contact. That's the one reason I think I can see him lasting longer than a lot of rushing quarterbacks have. Like, a lot of rushing quarterbacks, they do break down, but that's because they are willing to engage in contact. Like, Lamar does such a good job at avoiding contact. He gets out of bounds when he needs to. He makes the plays when he needs to. He's got good enough movement, and he's just smart enough, I think. I do think they try and pass more this year, and I do think as a result they struggle a little bit early, even though I think Lamar's a better passer than a lot of people give him credit for, and he's got better wide receivers now than he's ever had. But I can definitely see the argument of Cleveland coming in here and surprising and taking that division. Year 2 in this offense is going to be scary.
Baker has had very little consistency from a coaching standpoint.
Yeah.
And now he has that at least from year to year going into this season. Plus he's getting Odell back, which say what you will about Odell Beckham now with age, but he's an incredible player still. And I think they have a lot of talent on that team, especially with their running game. So I think it's Cleveland here. But
I also think Cleveland, if you ask me what team improved the most overall in the NFL over this past offseason, it's Cleveland.
Yeah. I think they're going to be incredible. And I really do hope for all of the Cleveland fans out there that they can finally get a Super Bowl because it's a long time coming. Then obviously in the West, I'd say Kansas City as well. So if I had to be generic, I would say it's going to be a Tampa Kansas City Super Bowl again, but I don't want to be generic, so I'm going to go with Kansas City Cardinals.
I like it. I like it.
Sweet.
All right. So, my topic number 2. I'm not going to lie. Didn't really want to talk about a whole lot of anything this week. So, not that I didn't want to talk about anything. I didn't have anything that really stood out. So, I pulled this one more from my, just like, I think it'll be interesting to see what Kyle thinks about this kind of thing. So, what is your opinion on the way that professional sports are kind of marketed in this country? Do you feel like a lot of leagues do a really good job, or do you feel like there's definite room for improvement? And is that in every league, or is it just some of them?
What do you mean by marketed? Like, in what way?
Like the way that they market themselves to current generations, the way that they market their superstars, the way that they, turn a very average thing in a sport to being like what draws as much attention as it does.
I think the NFL is far and above the best at marketing. I think that would be tough to convince me otherwise. I'll say that. I think the NFL does an incredible job of blasting, just from an advertising standpoint, to the masses. Whether you're a sports fan or specifically a football fan or not, I'm sure you could probably name some of the bigger players in the NFL just from the hype that goes around the sport as a whole. So I think the NFL, I think they're just unbeatable from a marketing standpoint within the United States. That being said, I think probably the worst major sport. So I'm gonna, I guess I'll define it this way. I would say the top 3, in my opinion, are basketball, baseball, football. In terms of sports in the United States. And in that respect, I think baseball does the absolute worst job.
Yep.
I don't even think they try. I think they're just like, we're America's pastime. People are going to keep coming to us, and they don't even try.
Yeah.
I can't tell you the last time I saw like an actual advertisement or any sort of marketing scheme for baseball.
Yep.
And so I think that you'd then throw the NBA in the middle there. But the NBA, I think I'm a little biased too, just because I don't care about basketball. Yeah. So I think maybe if I was less biased, I could maybe see an argument for basketball versus football from a pure marketing standpoint, because I think that the NBA does an incredible job as well, especially with their absolute superstars like LeBron. I think there's definitely an argument there for how well they market with that, with their, I don't know, maybe top 10 players within the entire NBA. But I don't know. I think they do. Obviously, they're doing a good job because they're making fucking incredible amounts of money. And the fan base, I would say, isn't really slipping for either of those sports.
Right. And
then the obvious outlier there is baseball, and I think the fan base is probably has slipped for baseball.
Yeah, I'm pretty much entirely in agreement with you. I think the NBA doesn't do a ton of marketing of their superstars because their superstars market themselves so well.
That's true.
I think that's one thing where I think basketball really has that distinct advantage of it being a sport where one guy can literally change the game, where I think other sports are too dependent on a combination of things. Whereas, like, in basketball, you can have a guy like Wilt Chamberlain back in the day who could go out and score 100 points, and that's more than most teams score. Like,
yeah, that's fair.
I think just in that sport, there's so many collabs with, there's Kobe's, or, you can say, I got a pair of Kobe's, and people know you're talking about shoes, or I got LeBron's, I got, Jordan's, like they're just so well marketed themselves that the league doesn't have to do as much. But I think what the league does still is they do well. I would say that hockey markets itself better than baseball. I would say that fucking professional golf markets itself better than baseball. Like, baseball is so terrible when it comes to marketing, and then the players start to market themselves, and people get mad at that, or like the league doesn't take advantage of it. And then when the league does try and market itself too, they've left such a bad taste in so many people's mouth that, like, you have people who are mad that the MLB is marketing the one game that they have going on at the time. They're like, that was a basic play. Why is this part of a highlight? Like, it's literally the only game that's going on at 11:30 on a Tuesday. Like, calm down there, Skippy. But there's so
it's
many
sad too because I love baseball. I really
Yeah.
do. But it's because I had family that got me into baseball. It's not like I had like marketing pressures
Yeah.
that made me get roped into the sport, or anything like that. It was literally I just had family that was baseball fans, and then they made me a baseball fan.
Yeah, like the only time I see any baseball advertising, if you're watching like TBS or any of the Turner stations, like occasionally you'll get a Braves note, like a Braves advertisement, just because they are so closely affiliated.
It's
there.
really only if you're what the fuck's it called? ESPN, whatever what's the Cardinals one? Or like it's probably Geographic, but there's like a dedicated ESPN. I think it's Fox Midwest, right?
Yeah.
Fox Midwest is
Yeah,
the one
so,
place
like,
where you're gonna find tons and tons of fucking.
Yeah, and then NBC
advertisements for
too.
baseball.
NBC is kind of they have a lot of partnerships like NBC Sports and whatnot. But it's like if you're not watching that, like you don't get exposure to these sports. And there's so many superstars in baseball right now that just aren't being like Mike Trout is literally the best baseball player that I have ever seen touch a field besides maybe Ohtani right now.
The
And
incredible
there's
thing too
nothing.
is that
there's
it's-
no advertisement.
I feel like marketing. I won't. I'm not a marketer, so I won't say that it's gotten easier. But I will say that like the methods of marketing have increased exponentially over
Yeah,
time.
there's
It's
so
not
much
like you're
more you can
fucking
do
putting
now.
an ad in a newspaper anymore, right?
Exactly.
Like you could just post something on Twitter or Facebook or whatever. And I think because of that, baseball has really been the slowest to adapt to change. And I completely agree with you. Like I see more things about professional hockey than I do about baseball, and I don't give a fuck about hockey either.
Yeah.
And so there's definitely something to be said. I don't care about golf. I see tons of shit about golf.
Yep.
Like an absolute metric shit ton of golf shit, and then they do a good job, I think, even in golf, of like showcasing some of their personalities,
Yes.
like the big personalities in golf, and making them relatable. So I don't know. I agree with what you were saying from a standpoint of the NBA and how they market themselves, and that helps. And then you can make a counterpoint to that too with with the NFL of how fantasy sports have done such an incredible job of marketing football in general. Like even for me, right? Like I've always been just a Dallas fan. I never really cared to watch anything but Dallas football games until I started playing fantasy, and now I watch 5 fucking NFL games at the same time. Like I love football a lot more because of the interaction that fantasy gave me. And I think that there is probably some sort of hype there too, and like help and assistance with fantasy baseball, because I know like you and like, but I think that's the thing with fantasy baseball, like it's such a niche market in terms of how many people are actually playing that. It's
Who
like the
cares
super
enough
fans
to
of
play-
baseball
yeah.
that are playing fantasy baseball because they know the players and they actually care and invest their time, but it's not because they have any sort of additional motivation. It's just literally like, hey, I am already a massive baseball fan, so I'm going to play fantasy baseball, as opposed to I am playing fantasy football, which is making me a bigger fantasy or NFL fan. Or
Like we
whatever.
made like my whole office play. We're like, even if you don't watch football, like we'll just
trying to
play
do that right
fantasy
now.
football together.
I'm literally
And
trying to
guess
do my
what?
office play.
Everybody in my office like watches football now and has favorite teams if they didn't before.
Yeah.
And like it's such baseball is. I don't want to say it's a boring sport, but it's such a
It's slow.
There's a lot of gaps between like the exciting moments that you have to be better at marketing yourself to stay relevant. And that's where they're royally screwing themselves right now. Is the coolest thing we've gotten out of baseball marketing in the past 10 years is that they do now. It's a camera. It's like I want to say it's like 4K or 8K that's positioned right by the dugouts, and they try and isolate the sound of the at bat as much as you can. So like you can really hear the crack of the bat when there's a home run, and they like follow the batter on the jog around. Like that's the coolest thing we've gotten in the last 10 years. That's like the same like football has been doing this shit for decades.
Yeah.
And we've just gotten it over the past 10 years is generous. It's honestly been like 5.
Like I said, I think the sport as a whole has just lived off we are America's pastime. People are going to come to games. It's baseball season. People are coming for a long time, and they just haven't really tried to expand the sport. The interesting thing too is that I think maybe like if you talk just pure like outside of the United States and just worldwide, I think soccer is probably the best.
Oh yeah.
That's another sport that I just truly don't care that much about.
Same,
but I
but
think
they do a phenomenal job. Like,
yeah,
I have not watched a soccer game in like 10 years. I know every superstar in soccer.
I don't think I've ever watched a soccer game in my entire life, and I could name at least a few of them. You know what I mean? So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that answers your question or your topic very specifically, but I think if you had to rank them, like in terms of who's doing the best in terms of marketing, I'd say probably NFL, whatever you want to say with soccer, if you want to incorporate more worldly or just in the United States. Even in the United States, they do a pretty good job. And then probably NBA, followed by like your hockeys, golfs, and everything else, and then baseball somewhere near the bottom.
Yeah. I just like to talk about it just because I'm so like disheartened by what happens with Major League Baseball. There's more talent in the sport right now than there's ever been, and it's just being wasted, in my opinion.
Yeah, this kind of goes hand in hand with what our previous conversation of if a major sport is going to go away in our lifetime, what's it going to be? And it shouldn't be baseball, but maybe it is because of the terrible job they're doing with marketing, for example.
It's just so weird how baseball's on a decline while sports like hockey and golf are on an incline. Both of those sports are inherently more expensive to play and more expensive to watch, honestly, than baseball is. Like baseball, I don't have to go to a Cubs game and spend $50 to get into the door and $10 a beer and buy all this shit. Like you can go to independent league games, you can go to minor league games. Like there's just
honestly, even in the MLB though, you can go to a game for like fucking $15 if you want to sit out in some kind of shitty seats.
Brewers games. I just got an email because I bought tickets to a Brewers game not that long ago. Every Monday, it's $6. There are terrace high fourth row seats, which are honestly some of the best seats in the stadium, for $6 to get into the door. The concessions are a little expensive inside, but it's a professional sporting event. I know what I'm expecting when I walk in there, but it's $6 to get into the door. Even at Cubs games, if you wait until the first inning's over, you can find a scalper on the side of the road who'll give you just take the tickets off of his hands and get inside the stadium for $10.
Dude, as a Cardinals fan, I would probably have season tickets if I lived close to the stadium.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even care how great the seats are. I just would want to go to every game.
Yeah. I'm thinking about buying season tickets to our independent league team here in Joliet, just because it's cost effective and it's a good. It's like, what do you want to do tonight? Well, we got tickets to the game. Let's go. It just gives us something to do, and it's not expensive, and I still get to watch a sport that I love.
Yeah, absolutely. Every time I've ever lived close to a minor league or independent league stadium, I have always gone to games.
Yeah,
I like to go to baseball.
It's cheap and it's a good time. So it's just disheartening to see the way that a sport is wasting the most talented generation it's ever had. It's kind of what
I agree.
Brings it to the forefront for me.
All right, man. So that's all I've probably got to talk from a marketing standpoint for the professional sports, unless you have something else you want to hit on for the topic.
No, man. It's just market your superstars better, MLB. Let players have fun. Honestly, just let players have fun, and don't glorify situations where players people get mad at players for having fun. Encourage the shit. Let guys be the superstars that they are. Just let it be. Just let it be a thing. And if you let the players market the sport, you don't have to. You're already not doing it. But let the players actually do it, and you'll see a resurgence. I'm just saying.
So I will say that I had a different topic in mind, but because of the theme that we're on, and I think you'll probably have more of an opinion on this than I do, but I'm happy to hear your thoughts on this. And then I'll kind of give my spiel as well. But what do you think now? We're a little late to the news here, but about college athletes finally being able to market themselves.
Thank the fucking Lord. I was so happy when that finally went through, because the NCAA has been a billion-dollar corporation from nothing that they've done. The schools market themselves. The players market themselves. The players have always marketed themselves. Even when they can't market themselves, everybody knows who the best players in the country are. Mm-hmm. It's not hard to figure it out. The NCAA they give them a platform of, yes, we will sanction your sport. That's all that they do, and they should not be making anywhere near the money that they've been making on these players. When I'm seeing players who are out there, there's guys who are already in line to make hundreds of thousands of dollars weeks after this got announced.
Oh yeah, dude. I think one of the coolest things that I've seen just immediately is I follow Barstool on pretty much everything, and I would say almost every single day Barstool is announcing another 20 athletes that they've signed.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
They've even said, what does being a Barstool athlete mean? They don't know, but it gives these players an opportunity to get their name out and do something more. Even if these people don't go professional in their sport, they are now an asset to any corporation that brings them on. They can be used as a marketing tool past that. So even just that gives them better job opportunities later on. If I'm between myself, if I was a hiring manager and I was between myself for a role, like just a guy who used to play baseball but wasn't ever famous, never marketed himself, versus I can pick this guy who just did a national ad campaign for this organization. He's not good enough to play pro baseball. I'm going to hire that guy, and I'm going to put him in every fucking commercial that I have for the next 2 years, and I'm going to generate a lot of revenue off of that.
I think I will say that my opinion on this has changed drastically over time, because when I was still in college, I think I was probably one of the most jaded people about college athletics, specifically football, because I went to a school where if you were a college football player, you essentially got your degree without any amount of effort or money.
Yeah.
That was the way that it was, and I'm sure maybe it still is, but I think I put the onus on the wrong individuals or entity, because I think at the time it bothered me because I would like literally sit next to college football players who would literally download like test answers from somebody on their phone and just fill out like tests in 10 minutes and then walk out the door, and teachers would see them doing this and then just be like, all right, whatever, I don't give a fuck. And so like college athletes were just given a free pass. Yeah. And that drove me absolutely incredibly insane as somebody that had to like work really hard to get through college. And so that bothered me. But the problem is now, and I've seen kind of like a bird's eye view rather than such a narrow biased approach to this, is that colleges as a whole, like I disagree with the way that we do education in this country. And I think we are allowing these, like, and a college itself is a corporation, dude.
Yeah.
It is a facility that is just sucking in fucking money and massively profiting off of not only the students but your student athletes. And I think everybody in the current way that we do education, or secondary education, post-secondary education in this country is being exploited relatively equal. Well, I shouldn't say relatively equally, but everybody's being exploited is my point. Like for me right now, I'm trying to get a master's degree, and I find that, especially from an online standpoint, like the amount of effort given by the university to instruct me is very little. I think it's literally they're just collecting the dollars and going, all right, cool, we'll give you a piece of paper later. Like the university doesn't give a fuck if they're going to give you a piece of paper later. Like, cool, here's a fucking printout piece of paper, bro. I don't give a shit. You just gave me X number of dollars. Like, good for me. I'm going to go pay some fucking...
I have to pay $300 to graduate. I'm not going to... I'm not
disgusting.
Walking. I'm not going to my graduation. Like...
But I say all of that to say that I am less bothered now. I think now that I'm not really exposed to the direct impact of kind of like the, hey, free pass through college kind of a thing, and I understand just how gross it is that the colleges were profiting off the names of these people and not really giving them very much. Because if you look at it, the only thing that they really got was, sure, they get to graduate if they stick all the way through school with probably minimal effort, if we're being honest. But like tuition is the only thing that they're essentially getting usually, and that's only for the scholarship athletes. It's not for the ones that are out there playing their ass off, putting in all the extra hours, and literally like it's a full-time job to be an athlete a lot of the time, and you're not getting paid.
Taylor Lewan just said it on Bussin' with the Boys. He's like, it's harder to be a college athlete than it is to be a professional athlete. He's like, my day-to-day is infinitely easier now that I'm in the NFL than it was when I was in Michigan.
I think there was almost a direct quote. Who'd you say?
Taylor Lewan.
Oh, I was gonna say, okay, I couldn't remember which name you said, because I was gonna say Najee Harris said almost the exact same thing.
Yeah.
He's like, I have free time.
Yeah, exactly.
He was like, what do I do with myself?
He was like, when I was in college, what Taylor said, he was like, I was in college. He's like, I wake up, I lift, I go to class after I've already been awake for 2 hours. I do my class throughout the day. Then I go to tutoring. Then I eat. Then I go to practice again because I did weights in the morning. Now I have actual practice. Now I'm done. I have to eat. I have to do any other homework that I haven't finished yet. And I've got to go to bed. He's like, I'm going nonstop from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. every single day. Mm-hmm. He's like, and now I'm in the NFL. I'm out of the building by 11:30.
Yeah.
He's like, my day's over, and I can go hang out with my wife and kids. He's like, I can do a podcast. Like, he's like, it's just it's crazy. And the thing that people don't realize is NCAA athletes still have to file for FAFSA. They have to do the free application for federal student aid. And even a full tuition scholarship is only covering things that FAFSA isn't covering. So if you're coming from a low-income family already, FAFSA and the scholarship that you're getting from the NCAA is maybe covering... It obviously depends on the school, but it's a fraction. It's not covering the full education. And if you're awarded a merit scholarship from that university as well, if you were a good student in high school, that's 30 to 80% at some schools of your tuition being taken care of upon that. Like, the NCAA is not giving these students as much as people want to make it seem.
I will say the university also picks up some of that bill too, typically, from what I've seen. Like, the NCAA will pay, but so will the university.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the times they're not getting as much from the NCAA as you might think, but they are getting additional help a lot of the times. But that doesn't mean covering somebody's tuition is not enough to live, right? And so, like, I know, like, thinking back, I lived with a college athlete just for a summer while I was kind of like in transition between different houses that I was living in with friends, and that dude, like, did not have enough money all the time just to, like, think about food because he was, like, so busy. Like, he couldn't even really pick up a job. Sometimes in the summer he would work just to try to, like, save up some money just to kind of supplement his needs during the school year. But yeah, it's shitty, dude. It's kind of like a conversation we've had before with, like, you know, the baseball players that are waiting to go to the majors, and, like, they're not making money, and it makes it very difficult because they're working hard. But
well, it's like see, to that point, like, you see these guys who finally get the opportunity. Like, I'll use baseball players as an example. Like, you look at guys who are in the minors forever, and then you look at them after, like, their first year in the majors when they have money now. Almost every single one of them just looks like they're in such better shape because they can actually eat good, nutritious food as opposed to, like, the spread after the game is pizza and McDonald's. Like, just being able to, like, get healthier and, like, to, like, wrap it all up, like, just there's so many people who are just athletics ends up being their whole life that they don't, like you're saying, get the chance to make enough money to make ends meet, and they can't do it during the season because, like we already said, their days are 18 hours long.
To make a long story short for me too, like, I'm much more sympathetic to the college athlete cause now than I was when I was younger and in school and everything like that. And I think they do deserve to get paid. They do deserve to get compensated for their time, and also fuck the institutions that control everything for them, honestly, until they make it to the pros. Like, the NCAA can eat a dick, and so can most colleges in terms of the way that they've taken advantage of these people over time. Like, I think I've opened my eyes to that concept, and I feel the frustration for those guys, and I'm happy they finally got to get rewarded and can now get paid out for all of the work that they're putting in to be what they are.
Yeah, it's long story short, they are still human beings, and the fact that they couldn't do anything without NCAA approval before was terrible. And now that they have the freedom, they are taking advantage of that, and a lot of people are going to live a lot better lives because of this ruling.
Yeah, I'm happy for it, man.
The NIL rules. So
good for college athletes.
That's a good way to wrap it up. Thank you all for tuning in for another episode of Two Average Husbands. Make sure you check us out on all of our socials. Linktree will be in the bio as always. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, check out our Facebook, give us a like there, check us out on YouTube, subscribe, thumbs up the video, all that fun shit. And Kyle, you take it away.
Jake hit everything that I wanted to hit on with the exception of one thing, which is we are trying to figure out what scheduling looks like for the rest of the summer since Jake is busy and I'm busy. So obviously Thursdays aren't as consistent for us, and Jake's got a lot of shit going on Thursday, Friday. So we're trying to figure out what day is going to work best for us, and we will keep you guys updated as soon as we know, because it's probably not going to be Saturdays either. So we'll figure out what day is going to work best, and we'll get you guys all updated until we get back into the fall season and can go back to regular on Thursdays.
Kickball is only, I think, a 6-week season, so maybe Fridays become an option quicker than otherwise they are. But
sure,
yeah, we'll
get everybody up to date.
We'll get you an episode a week. We just don't necessarily know what day that's gonna be. Sure. So, thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you all next week.
Peace.